I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance. Okay, route of egress. In the event of an emergency, all people may exit right or left from this room and proceed to an exit door. All doors will open from the inside. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Hailton Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published in the North Jersey Herald News, the board's official newspaper, on January 11th, 2023 and April 21st, 2023. Notices of this meeting indicating date, time, and place were posted publicly on the door of the main entrance to the school and filed with the clerk in the municipality of Hailton. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbasi?
Here.
Mr. Coletta?
Here.
Mr. Guzman? Mr. Martinez?
Here.
Mr. Moxon?
Here.
Mr. Webb? Mr. Zinn?
Here.
Mrs. Intellivic?
Here.
And Mrs. Issa.
Here. Okay, I am going to turn it over to Board Secretary Miss Augustin for the budget presentation.
Thank you, Madam President. Today, we're going to present the 2024 budget. We had already went over the preliminary budget back on March 19, and the board adopted the budget, and it went to the county board, county office for a review and approval. And since then, it's been approved by the county by April 20th, and we're here to adopt and review the budget tonight. Bill, you'll move it along. Okay. Right. So each board member received a blue folder. A copy of the slide is in the folder, or you can follow along on the screen. Mr. Walker and I will present information on this. I will start it off. We will talk about the goals of the district, and then I'll follow up with the financial part. So if we look on the first slide, this just discusses the process of which the board took to prepare and develop the budget. The most part of it was developed by the superintendent and the BA with input with the administration and also members of the district, and any other consideration was taken in to develop the budget. The finance team met to discuss the budget primarily during the preliminary budget process, and then it was presented to the board on March 13th, in which it was finally approved by the county superintendent on the 20th, and we're here to adopt the budget. Next slide. Some of the budget highlights are the fact that the district has been able and fortunate not to increase the tax levy over the last 5 years, which is a great benefit to the taxpayers, and also be able to meet the needs of the district. Another big highlight is the state aid increase, which kind of correlates with the fact that the district didn't have to increase the tax levy because of the amount of money we received tax levy that covers a big portion of the school district budget. This year in our budget, we are being very ambitious with the $200 capital reserves that withdrawal. This is to add on to the ESSA funds that we're already receiving to do the building expansion and addition project, along with some other upgrades that we're doing with the security cameras and the wireless security doors, which is also going to be a big benefit to our school district. In the budget this year, we use a surplus amount of $624,639. This was actually kind of given up to us and saying from the county that we did have to use that amount. We were trying to be a little bit more conservative on that part, but in order to pass the budget, we had to kind of utilize these funds because of the cap that we have on, reserving funds. In the budget this year, we have a supervisor of building and ground, in which we are going to discuss tonight on the agenda, and we are still continually to foster the programs that are listed here, as specifically the Green Initiative, expanded Maker Night, and SEL. The district goals, Mr. Walker will discuss this part as
Yeah.
far as the budget presentation.
So we want, everyone's goals in district to be aligned. That way we're all rowing our boat in the same direction. And these all come from the 4 goals we put in the strategic plan. In our strategic plan, we had 4 goals, but then we had a lot of sub goals, built in. The student achievement, where our kids are gonna start to take the NJSLS on Monday. I like the efforts that the team made to kind of get, local community leaders and people within the building, and even a talking dog to kind of motivate the students, to try their best, because, there's some parents opt out, and that's their prerogative, but this is the data that helps us determine, where we're effective and where we're less effective, so we can change that. So, but out of all the schools that use IXL in the whole country, and there's a lot of them, we answered the most questions correctly out of anyone, 1.3 million. So our kids got really into that NCAA bracket kind of IXL challenge thing. It was a real neat first year thing we had. The second goal, we talked about all our goals under the umbrella of, SEL, social emotional learning. Our third goal dealt with school safety, and we did a lot of upgrades there. We currently have about maybe 70 or 80 cameras. By the time December's over, we expect to have about 40 additional cameras. One of our weaknesses now is the playground area, especially certain angles, certain parts of the field especially. The cameras that are going to be installed there are stronger cameras. They're also the 180-degree eye cameras, so it'll give us more scope. And the length that something can be saved before it starts repeating over itself has increased. So those are, and then there's also the school door project, where we're looking to put in automatic locking doors on every classroom. That's something that's going to go on this summer. And we're not going to tell you when, but we're very soon we're going to be ready to launch the fake phishing email attacks, and anyone that's an employee or a board member even might get randomly picked to receive it. And I've seen some of the sample ones. There's one level that it's like, well, anyone could tell it doesn't look right. But once you get to the higher levels, some of these look shockingly, authentic, right? So we want to just get our staff, and we're not looking to say you messed up, we got you, but we got to see what kind of attacks are working, so then we can start defending ourselves for that. And then, facilities and sustainability, we just got the ROD grant from our architect about the various projects we have going on. But the HVAC, we have the building expansion that's on the horizon, the playground, the playground mat repurposing, and the addition of an inclusive type playground. That's a lot of stuff. But even after that, we're looking to build out so that I want it to be eventually so that the security guard has room, so that when you scan your ID to comply with Megan's law, then the next set of doors opens up. We need to build more room. So there's a lot of things on the horizon that this budget and future budgets are going to look to address. Can you click, Bill? We talked before, but I think when schools are going the right direction, everyone's goals are aligned. We don't have teacher goals at City Field and the administration goals at Yankee Stadium, and someone else's goals at the Meadowlands. Everyone's kind of on the same page. So according to the Achieve NJ, the teachers have to have at least 3 professional development goals each year. One of them has to be based on their evaluation, their summative from last year. One of them has to be one could be based on anywhere where they internally or they and the supervisor want to see them kind of grow or develop. And then, we're asking that the third be somewhat aligned to some part of our strategic goal for the district. So everyone's going the same direction there. It's the same thing with our school administrator goals. So, Ms. Barnum, Frito, Mr. Mendez. They have the same, because the chief NJ applies for administrators too, so they were asked to do the same thing. I actually just submitted all the strategic plan goals, and I put it on the NJFBA website, so whatever you feel comfortable, you can do that part of my superintendent evaluation. We have to have it done, I think, before the end of June, but I'll let you know the exact date. It changed a couple of years ago, they changed the date because of COVID, but that's worth 6 points on our QSAC, so if as it gets closer, I'll probably bother you more about that. And then each board member, you're gonna submit individual goals of what you wanna do or accomplish as a board member. I can't tell you what to do, but I would encourage you that, use our strategic plan to consider using our strategic plan to kind of map your goals against. So we have to give a statement of priorities in every budget, every school does. Student achievement, that was our first goal of our strategic plan, and for a reason. And we outlined the metrics that we're gonna look for. Student and staff SEL, we're seeing different things at different grade levels. And that's something where we could very potentially expand upon what we do with our SEL, but we're still using some of the balance of our federal ESSER money to pay for the SEL counselor and a lot of SEL activities. The school safety, like we said, all the things we're doing there, and then planning for the future. So under this, like we talk about all the issues that come up at board meetings and all the problems that we talk about. Those are all important, but there's one priority that's, I think, so important. That's making sure our building is fully staffed. Even on the way here, I was listening to a podcast about just education in general, and every superintendent had to submit something to any superintendent that received federal funds, which is almost every public school superintendent, had to submit how many schools in their district had at least one vacancy on October 1st. And not just district, but it came out, the results came out, and on October 1st, 45% of schools, not districts, but schools in America had at least one vacancy that was unfilled. So that's a lot of hours, that's a lot of kids, that's a lot of instructional time lost. We're blessed that we don't have that problem right now, but we've had to do a lot of work to make sure we've been as fully staffed as we can. For as long as we have been, but it's about recruiting teachers, it's about making the school an attractive place to want to work. And it's about we're small, so we can be quicker in a lot of areas. So, I'm looking at the next agenda. I anticipate there's going to be 2 or 3 positions where we look to hire before a lot of other districts have even, posted their next year's hirings, because that's what's going to help us to, get through this. We talked about, this is something you have to include as well. We have to show how each part of the academic, the curriculum or the materials is impacted by this budget. So obviously our budget goes to impact all aspects, all classrooms and all subject matters. I'm going to be doing my QSAC review with the county. We go through this in detail, but I don't think this will be any problem, justifying every aspect of how our money in this budget is spent on these areas. And again, these are just also part of the mandatory things that we have to tell the state how we use this money. But in every category here, we hire staff, and that's through the budget. Materials, that's through the budget. Now let me go.
Okay. So this slide shows our annual tax levy increase for the next school year, which, like I stated before, it is 0 increase. And our general fund budget is $22,984,446. With special revenues of $6,374,895. And just so everyone knows what the special revenue funds is, that is grant money, ESSER, Title 1, 2, 3, and any type of special grants that is given through federal or state, and this also include our preschool aid. With this brings our total budget for the year of $29,359,361. And at the bottom, it just shows our tax levy and what the percentage change is, which is 0. The next slide shows just a view of the last 12 years of where the tax levy has been. As you can see, the highlighted area in yellow, 0%. The last time the district has ever increased the tax levy was in 2019. And it wasn't, actually it's 2018. Okay, and next slide just kind of give you another visual effect of what that looks like over the history. So the estimated tax impact. So this year, the estimated tax impact of the tax levy will be on the average house assessment of $231. 529 is $3.62 for the year, which brings us about 30 cents per month. And this is about, on the average $100,000 house would be about 49 cents per $100,000. Yeah, I wish. Yeah, so the average assessment value, home value of $231,529. The annual tax increase is $3.62, which brings us about 30 cents per month. Does anyone have any questions specifically on that? So, our revenue sources, I think we discussed this before, but this is part of what our budget is made of and where we get our revenue sources from. The part that most people are more inquired about is the tax levy, and I think I've said this a few times, and I think we should just be proud of the fact that we did not put a big impact on our citizens, and we are still sticking with the 0%. But I just want everyone to continue to understand the reason why we can do this is because of the aid that we're getting, which is a big part of our budget, and that's really kind of keeping us going in this manner. So I just want everyone to understand that. For if down the line there's future discussion about the tax levy, understand the reason why it will correlate with the amount of state aid that we get, if that's an option to go up, I have to increase it.
And also with the inflation, when inflation going up, it may be a factor in.
All of those things are a factor, the cost of goods and materials, the cost of health benefits, which was a shocker to us this year because it went from 5% to 15% in half a year. So all of those things were, a big factor in our budget. So, and we don't get the actual amount for the 2024 until 2024 when it comes to the health benefits. So we do a projection of what we think it might be. As I mentioned before, the surplus went up. We pretty much had a little bit more increase in miscellaneous income because of the fact that we are expecting some rate funds. State aid was a larger portion of an increase, and federal funds, and with the preschool aid and also the capital reserve. So the next slide just gives us another visual of the percentage of what our revenues look like. And if you look at this pie, you can see how much state aid is supporting our budget. Yes. Okay. So the next slide is just another breakdown from year to year of the state aid by category. Okay. Yes.
What would cause state aid to go down?
I can give you what I think, but it's really all of the calculation from the state and how they decide to distribute the money. Because once they change the funding formula, and no one can really grapple how, because even this year, there was a lot of districts that lost state aid, and they went back to the governor, I believe, and now they're getting some more state aid added on. But like Jersey City is one of the examples. Like that city obviously has a big population of free and reduced lunches. You would think they wouldn't have been affected, but they were.
And we don't know what caused that decrease.
We want to say free, your population of free and reduced. We want to say like your student enrollment. All of those things are a factor, but in the end, it's whatever the state decides how they decide to distribute the funds. Right now, we're in a good position, but, you know, we just gotta continue, taking care of things like our capital projects while we can, because if we have to make a decision down the line about our budget, we don't want it to be our human capital that we have to make that decision, yes.
And just a question to follow up on that, is the state formula, is it arbitrary? Can they change it from year to year,
No.
or does it have to be approved?
It does have to be approved. We're on the S2 formula right now, and they're using that formula to determine how much each district get. I know there was an imbalance, that's why they went with the S2 formula, and they felt like some districts were not receiving their fair share at that time. But all it takes is districts to come forward and say, now I'm not being treated fairly, what are you gonna do about that?
And moreover,
You know?
and that's all true.
Mhm.
The governor's got a pot of money. He could choose how much he's gonna throw into this formula. If he decides I'm gonna throw less into this formula, more into highways or more into, you know, medical or whatever else, you know, or he could, the last 5 years, we've received about a little over $1 million each of the last 5 years. That's, you know, why we were able to do so many projects and upgrade, you know, but will that happen for another 5 years? We'd like that to happen, but we can't guarantee it.
But and the reason why I like us to have these conversations, because we want to know that there's a possibility to talk about the tax levy increase down the line. And I want everybody to understand that this is a conversation that we may have to have, you know, in a few years, okay?
Later than sooner.
Yeah. A year or two, maybe, but I just, you know, just never know with politics, you know.
Back one more.
Okay.
The special revenue, that's basically a reflection of the work you and Chris do out and your team trying to go out and get funds.
Well, we are entitled to certain entitlements, like Title I, Title II, the district are. But we do have to go and apply for this every year annually. We have to submit data. Our administrators help us with that too. We're collecting data to put in. We have to do things within timelines. So it's a grant that you have to apply for, although we're entitled to it, but we do have to do that. And then we do look into other grants, like the security grant, the capital, emerging capital grant, like the ROD grant, like we're working on that right now to try to get as much funds as possible so that we can take care of infrastructure, so that we can focus on curriculum and programming needs with our finances.
90% of our grant money is grant money that we're informed of by the state that, hey, this is available, you'll probably apply, or we have to. There was a push about 10 or 15 years ago for districts to hire grant because there's a lot of other pools of money that we could find grants. And most districts found that it wasn't worth the cost of the employee and their benefits to hire, because a lot of these grants are 2,000 here, 1,000 there. But it's some of the bigger districts still are able to, you know, to keep it because they're so big and they can. But most, there's a couple of things we found on our own. Like George kind of let us know about the security, but he knew about that through something for the NJ police that also applicable to schools. So every now and again we'll get, you know, Victor's actually sent me some stuff about, you know, environmental stuff. So there is avenues to get extra, but it's normally not as big of a dollar amount.
Yeah, you know, I actually used to be a grant writer, and I can definitely see why schools would not find it feasible to hire someone to just chase these small needs. I think what I don't know if we're already doing it, but if there's, you know, if there are a couple of teachers who are interested in a project, I've seen in other situations where the teachers themselves prepare, you know, the proposal, and for smaller grants, they tend to be pretty. They don't create too much of a burden.
So when you walk into the school and you see those pictures of like books painted on lockers, that was through a grant, an artisan residency grant. So that's a great example of just what you were talking about, where small groups of people working on something and able to get a project for that.
a lot of times those are services in kind, right? So it's not necessarily that you're getting money, but you're getting like the artist to come
Yeah.
and do,
So the one, the drummer,
right.
a couple of things, within the scope, yeah.
So appropriations, as you can see, if we look at the breakdown of our appropriation, obviously, we know the largest portion of that is health, salaries and benefits, and that's in any organization. That's gonna be your biggest, liability or responsibility as an organization to pay. Then we have, special revenues right after that, which to help support our budget. So honestly, if you really look at, some of the expenses that we have, it's this, the special revenue fund is not really an expense because we're receiving federal grant money, and it's kind of like a wash in and out, okay? Because we have to spend it specifically for the grant, but we are receiving the revenue, so it's an in and out fund, okay? Expense to us. Then we have our capital projects, we have our regular programs, special programs. Tuition is a large part of our expenses, which is about 23%, and I think that's what you were saying before.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have transportation and other maintenance and security, technology and administration. Okay. So our salaries, just a breakdown of the salaries, since that is a bigger portion of our budget. The biggest part is our regular programs, which is at 65%, special education, which is at 23%, our maintenance, custodial, security, transportation, secretaries, and school admin. And the next slide is just a visual of that breakdown of our salaries as it relates to our district here.
I like how, so it looks like around 86-87% of the salaries are going towards people who are engaged in
With
teaching,
student contact.
you know, as
Mhm.
opposed to some other lopsided.
Yes. Okay, and the next slide is just an overall breakdown of our budget in general. And from this perspective, if you're looking at the budget as a whole, we have obviously the salaries and benefits as the biggest part, and then we have our other programs to follow. But this is just a picture of what our budget is broken down with. If anyone wants to kind of dig into that, that's fine. We can talk about it and have another discussion at another time. I did provide you guys a breakdown of the budget in general in your folder. So it has an accounts total detail, so you can look line by line at everything. It's another report inside your folder. And then also you have a breakdown of the budget that was submitted to the DOE. And that will correlate to what you see here. Okay? Again, we have 2 staff members that we're hiring new. That's has nothing to do with like the replacements of any staff members that might be retiring, but these are just new additional staff members to the budget. So the buildings and ground and the paraprofessional. Okay? The next is just a breakdown of what we plan to spend the $2 million on. This is a rendering of the design that was submitted to us by the architect.
These colors are official.
Yes. Okay?
That's great.
We concur.
All right.
Check how green the grass is.
Next slide or 2 is the one, just some renderings from the classroom design in which we plan to use like different colors. And, you know, we sat with the architect, I believe it was last week while we were on vacation, and just kind of went through all these little details. And this is part of what the $2 million will be spent. Okay. Another picture. Hallway picture. And then the last is we also included some technology equipment purchases in our budget. We are going to be upgrading the switch, which is going to cost us about $198,000. classroom phones, which is about 10,000. I think we've been doing the classroom phones every year. We're adding them on, switching them out little by little each year in the budget, right, Phil?
Yes.
Okay. And then we have the security cameras and also the wireless security door system. Now, these two projects at the bottom, we budget for them. We're hoping to get some type of release through the ROC grant. This is one of those other grants that we applied for. But we also have to show that we could pay for the, grant before they even actually consider approving it. So that's why it has to be budgeted. Okay? And that is it. And I'm open for any questions or comments.
And I that you explained that, and you need to put it in there in order for them to see it, that there's a need for it. If they don't see the need for it, then they'll never give us extra money for it,
Right.
which then comes out of our human.
Yes, human capital. We don't want,
Definitely don't want to touch
we
that.
don't want to touch the human capital.
Great explanation. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The one new hire position is a shared position, correct? with
It is a
Manchester?
fair position.
And does the cost get split? Is it
Between-
50/50?
50/50 between salaries and benefits. Yeah.
Just to add on to that, so like Mika's paycheck will say Manchester Regional High School. This position will officially be a Halden position. Just so you have that information.
And just like the contracts for other shared services that we have, any decisions, if they defers to for this position, the decisions would defer to us, and then Manchester would, you know, we could have discussions with
Yeah.
them, but we really make the final decision, right?
No, it depends on what do you mean by final, decisions? Like, for instance, if there is a discussion about me, it will be Chris and Gary will discuss my appointment. If there is an issue with anything concerning me, they would discuss it together. But as far as approval, it has to come through your board first before Manchester can approve it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before, let's go, but we've worked together on a lot of hires and a lot of projects. I'm comfortable saying that if I didn't want to bring someone back, but they happen to be a Manchester employee, we both understand it's in our best interest to, we both have to want something instead,
Right, what you, right.
Yeah, I expect that there would be like good cooperation between
Yeah.
us and Manchester on any of these shared services.
Job so far. We had a lengthy process, we went back and forth between candidates and, eventually we came to consensus.
And we do the contract, I'm just thinking of the language in the contracts, like I know some of the past contracts, it's kind of like we're the lead, I guess I should say, the lead for this position, for this.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
So
We're also the lead for the special services
That's-
director.
But to be fair too, like there's two of our employees for us that are hosted, they're stationed at Manchester. So, it's in our best interest to cooperate.
So
And Pat is a Manchester employee, is that correct?
We all are.
You are too?
Yep.
So it has to get approved by our board first before it can show up in Manchester board.
Questions or? Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Ms. Augustin, Mr. Walker, and everybody else who was involved in putting this together. So I know it's a lot of work, but it looks great. And I think, perfect decision. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go back to the agenda. Okay, so can I have a motion to accept correspondence? Mr. Mosco, seconded by Mr. Zlatanovic. Roll call, please.
Mr. Avasi,
Yes.
Mr. Coletta,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Moxell,
Yes,
Mr. Zen.
Yeah.
Mr. Zentanovic,
Yes.
and Mrs. Issa.
Yes. Can I have a motion to approve the prior minutes?
so move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Mosco, seconded by Mr. Martinez. Roll call, please.
Mr. Avasi,
Yes.
Mr. Coletta,
Abstain, I missed part of the meeting, I was late.
Okay. Wanted to make sure we had enough for pass it. Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Matzo,
Yes.
Mr. Zen?
Stan.
Uh-oh.
It's done.
Okay.
Can you remind me tomorrow, because I was at a workshop somewhere, I don't know if it was
We're
Atlanta
gonna-
or somewhere, but are you, I think it was argued that you're voting to say that you're knowledgeable that you've seen this agenda and it exists and it happened, as opposed to I was there the whole time.
Because we were told that as long as you read and agree with the minutes, you can pass, you can vote on it. That's what we
It
did.
might be Kathy. I remember myself that you.
And if there was ever any situation, someone who was absent would just watch the video and consider the minutes, and then they can vote on it.
But I didn't get anyone to finalize that and confirm,
But I
but
thought-
I heard that in the workshop, yeah.
I thought we just need a simple majority, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
for the minutes.
I didn't say in the future, like,
Yeah.
what would we do?
Well, because we have enough people for the meeting, not everybody has to agree with everything in the meetings.
Yeah, if you, let's say, do a head count ahead of time, and the people who were at the meeting were going to be absent, and people who were absent were going to be at the meeting, they probably should be advised to watch the video.
Well, they can read the minutes too.
They can read the
do
minutes,
it.
yeah, I mean,
So we have enough
We
tonight?
still have enough, I just wanted to make sure,
Okay.
yeah. Mrs. Antonivic
yeah.
and Mrs. Issa.
Yes.
I think you have like a rule of, what's it called, the rule of necessity or something like that?
No, the
where-
doctrine of necessity, but this wouldn't be considered that because we can move it to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Only if it was like a budget or a personnel issue
Yeah.
that would be necessary to do something like that.
Yeah.
If there's a conflict with someone that can't vote on it because of their connection or, somewhere like a teacher's union, or if there's like a employee like
Yeah.
yourself, and we need your vote in order to pass it, that's when the doctrine of necessity will be invoked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing that comes to mind that requires a supermajority is where we do transfers between accounts,
Yes.
right? I think it's like 3/5 or something like
Three
that, 3/4.
Quarters, yeah.
Can I have a motion to open the floor to citizens on agenda items only?
Motion.
Motion, she was over there, Mr. Gallardo, seconded by Mr. Martinez. Roll call, please.
Mr. Avasi,
Yes.
Mr. Coletta,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez.
Yes.
Mr. Boxell,
Yes.
Mr. Zen,
Yes.
Mr. Zentanovic,
Yes.
and Mrs. Issa.
Yes. Okay, so the floor is open to the public for agenda items only. If anybody would like to make a comment. Is there anybody online?
I'd like to say something.
Okay, can you please state your name and your address?
Yeah. Can I ask why we're opening up the floor and we're only on number 4?
Because we're at agenda items only. That's,
Right, but you guys haven't discussed like the 13 that you have on your agenda.
but you can ask a question on any of
I'd like
that.
to have a conversation before I ask the question. Like, this is just reading it, but when you guys conversate, then I would I would be able to.
Right, so at the end of the meeting, when the floor is open, you could also ask a question about an agenda item. Was the first, when we opened the floor the first time, it's specifically for agenda items only. But when we open it again, it doesn't have to be, but I mean, I don't think there's
I
anything.
think the rationale is that, say you saw something, on the public agenda that you wanted to either influence a board member about or get to their attention so that it could perhaps even sway or influence or make them reconsider what their vote may be. That would be an opportunity that the public would have to get that before, we talk about the issue. Some boards, to your point, do it the opposite. Some boards will do, then you can comment on it, and then we do the public comment, and then we do vote. So It's something for, you know, if this,
Okay.
this-
Minimum period of time to remain,
Mhm.
what's he going to be doing?
Yeah, so this is a position we're gonna share with Manchester. It's gonna be the head custodian, so the head director of building and grounds, right? He's gonna be hiring custodians. He's going to be assigning custodians to certain responsibilities. He's gonna be making sure that all the requirements, the building requirements are set for each district. He's gonna be working with our architect and our vendors for all the construction projects. During the winter time, when there's, you know, snow or something like that, that's a big time for the custodians. They do weekend checks on our building. Basically, we have a building that operates, well, what,
It was Corrado's.
it was Corrado's old position, yeah. So when Corrado sadly passed, we kind of hatched it, you know, with two current employees. But it was in a position where we wanted to protect its investments. We wanted to rehire that position that Corrado vacated.
So none of the, people that are here now currently employed by HPS applied?
There was 0 HPS applicants.
So any other?
Certificated, like you have to have like the highest level of certification. No one from HPS had that particular certification level.
Okay, so is this the same person that's rumored to have a lawsuit already?
Yeah, it's public knowledge.
So we're hiring somebody who already has a lawsuit pending, and we already have a walking lawsuit around in ready, and we're gonna still hire.
Yeah, so the first part of your question.
One of them.
Any other questions or comments, Mr. Miller? Anybody? Okay, motion to close the floor?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Motzko, seconded by Mr. Zinn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abasi,
Yes.
Mr. Coletta,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez, Mr. Matzo,
Yes.
Mr. Zen,
Yes.
Mrs. Antoniuk, and Mrs. Zissou.
Okay, moving on to committee reports. I will start with my report. So all the board members should have received an email from New Jersey School Board Association about the superintendent evaluation. It's ready for our input. So for new board members, you'll have to log in to get access to the evaluation. And it's a bit of a lengthy process, so, you know, please don't wait till the last minute. The deadline is usually like the end of June. It didn't say in the email, but it's usually like June 30th or something like that. We need a minimum of 5 board members to complete that evaluation, but I encourage all of you to do it. And, you know, even if you've only been on the board for a short time, it's still, your input is still valuable, so please do it. And then how this is gonna work is that once, you know, we're ready to, once we have everybody's evaluation and we're approaching the deadline, we will meet and discuss our, you know, our thoughts and the evaluation in executive session
Without me.
without Mr. Waka, as a board. And then we will come up with one evaluation that will be presented to Mr. Waka. And that will be his formal evaluation for the year, and that will be in his file. That will be part of his record. So that's how that works. So, but please do, you know, start looking at it. And if you did it before, you could even, you know, you might be familiar with the format, so it might not take you as long. But, you know, it's the most important thing that school boards do is evaluate their superintendent, because their superintendent is the person who, you know, manages and oversees the school district. So it's really important. It's a really important responsibility. So I hope that everybody is able to do it. Secondly, I want to wish Mr. Peck the best of luck in his future endeavors. We appreciate everything that he's done for our students, for our staff, and for our school and our community. And if you've ever had a conversation with Mr. Peck, his energy, his enthusiasm is like super contagious. You know, he's just a great person, and we're lucky that we had him for this many years. And you know, we wish him the best. And lastly, I just want to give a shout out to the 13 students who were inducted into the National Junior Honor Society tonight. It's really a testament to their hard work, not just this year or the past 2 years, but, you know, all of their hard work at HPS, so during their time at HPS. Schoolwork, community involvement, you know, extracurricular, it shows their commitment to their school and their community. So, you know, shout out to them, and thanks to Mr. Morgan and Ms. Barbara, who are the advisors for that. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Waka.
Thank you, Board President Isa. Today just happens to be National Administrative Assistant Day. And this provides me the great opportunity at this board meeting to thank the people that really are the ones that make the district run. They're the front line on everything. So I want to thank Ms. Jenny Peffin and Ms. Allie Chalmers in the main office. They're wonderful, they're hardworking, they do so much more that we could ever ask of them. Ms. Evelyn Maney in the attendance office, and Ms. Julie Tatis in the special services office. But we also have our secretaries and assistants at the board office. So I want to thank Ms. Jen Moser, Ms. Lois Joblist, Ms. Vianetta Galarraza, and Ms. Vianetta Galarraza. So, you know, like I said, the school wouldn't be able to operate at all without them. I won't publicly admit to having forgotten about today being Administrative Assistant Day, but then someone that's sitting to my left may have sent me a text. So tomorrow I'll make sure that, you know, there's some nice gift for the people that helped me out so much. I do want to offer this board an apology. So tonight I double booked us. We did the National Junior Honor Society induction. I knew that ceremony would be less than an hour, but it didn't dawn on me that some board members might be in a position where they would have committee meetings beforehand and they have to kind of choose between that. So that's on me. You know, I'll make sure that, you know, I'm more careful when we look to make, you know, future dates and everything. But so sorry for I know it affected you, but next year it might affect someone else. And also congrats to all the kids. The ceremony was beautiful. I thought Mr. Morgan did a really nice job. The trio did a great job with the kids. I got to thank Lamika. The last 2 weeks have definitely been your super busy time of the year for you. And I could tell when I'd call you to bug you about a question for this or a purchase for that, you know, I could tell in your voice there's stress. But thanks for being patient with me all the time. On tonight's agenda, we have our hire for Director of Facilities. I provided the board with a very detailed summary that included the number of applicants, number of interviews, and the rather extensive reference checks that we did. This candidate has expressed an interest to me in attending the next board meeting so he can introduce himself and briefly discuss his professional accomplishments and review what his role will be for all the major projects and his vision for what he'd like the school, or both schools, but especially our school, to be moving forward in terms of building the grounds. You'll see on the agenda that there's the second time that you're approving the NAESP, the National Elementary School Principal Conference. That because we got approval from the state to go to the conference, but then they said, oh yeah, by the way, we can't pay for your hotel night the night before the conference starts. So some people are just going to choose to wake up really and drive down to DC. I probably will stay down there the night before, but you know, everyone still wants to go. I went there 2 years ago and I learned a lot and helped me. So I'm glad we could bring back some support. Under policy, we had a good meeting. We have several different recommendations of note. The first is the Governance 1 training. I think the law goes into the effect next year that you have 90 days to get your training. I think Mike had asked, like, what happens if like you're a new board member that comes on mid-year? Like, if there's no training, what would happen? So I think there is enough trainings, but next time we have Merlino here, that's something I will ask him as well, or I'll text him. And I think it's a good thing to get it done the first 90 days, so just in general. So, you know, when you conduct my evaluation, you know, you probably have to be a little bit more, you know, knowledgeable about the process because they worked with you on that. Omar and I actually did Governance 1 training together in Atlantic City. And back then it was longer because it was in person, like the whole morning we were there. So this one was, I think it's like 2 or 3 hours you were there, Mike?
No, it was all day.
Oh, it was all day?
On Zoom, yeah.
Oh, so that was the same thing, the same
Yeah.
length we
Yeah,
had.
It was all day.
Sorry, Mike. Another important recommendation was regarding the policies in the 3,000 to 4,000 section for corporal punishment. So anything in the 3,000 section, that's going to involve teaching staff members. The 4,000 is going to, as Omar pointed out, program. That could be an aftercare worker, an aide. It could be anyone that's not technically a teacher. And, you know, I guess in retrospect, it's a little funny that, you know, Mr. Klett had recommended one word in the policy change that I happen to really agree with, but his word was on the top of the policy and the word that I thought he was referring to was at the bottom or vice versa. But once I got that, and Omar also kind of expressed that word, but we all know if a teacher were to ever, or a certified staff or an aide or anyone were to ever hit a child or do something like that, that they should expect reasonably so that the board would invoke strong levels of punishment. And I know you, not that I would ever do that, but I would expect that of you guys from me if ever like that happened. There's also the policy regarding the information we need to provide to the Haledon Police Department. There's certain new things that they want to make sure every school provides to their local. We have our memorandum of agreement goes above and beyond because we have the camera access where if something were to happen, they could look in their cameras on their computers in their cars and see what's going on. But now they want things like aerial footage shots and a detailed floor map. So when SRO, provided this board approves this, and I sit down with SRO this week and we go through the checklist, and anything we don't have, we figure out a way to get it, and we get it to HPD. You may notice on our website we have posted for a grade 2 position teacher, and you might be asking, well, why would you post for that when we haven't received a second grade resignation or anything like that? It's because we've decided to stay in-house, and Ms. Wantula will be serving to replace the position that Ms. Noelle Snyder is vacating for retirement. She was the only full-time staff member that had the cert in hand. The other staff members were still in the process of getting the cert. Normally I wouldn't do this if there's other staff members that were also applying, but I thought it would be a nice thing to say publicly that we appreciate Ms. Wantula. We think she's going to do a really good job. And what I think is the most important thing, or one of the most important things during interviews, just the enthusiasm for taking on a specific role. And she certainly had that. So she'll be a quick learner, I'm sure. We're also going to be looking to replace that position. Like I said before, we're going to start looking applications have already came in for that. And that's because, even though she's home on maternity leave, and I told her not to do that, Ms. Cusack was with me, and Ms. Troy was with me. Ms. Cusack was for one of them, and Ms. Troy for another of the teacher recruitment fair. So Danielle Cusack at home emailed all the teachers that we put stars next to that we thought were really strong and cordially invited them to apply to that position. So it just makes us faster when we do things like that. It makes people feel wanted and recruited almost. Again, I also want to congratulate Mr. Peck. That's an awesome. He is an infectious person. He'd actually worked with my brother in Clifton when my brother was a teacher, and Timmy was like, "Well, there's this guy. Teaching was for him anymore, but if you ever get a chance, he wants to try it again, and he's going to be great." And I met him, and I felt what when my brother was telling me about, and and I think when we see staff members leave us because they're moving closer to home, like we all get that, or if we see staff members leave us because another school is going to pay them more money, like we get that. But like we haven't really seen staff members here moving horizontally for equal amounts of pay, unless there's a reason like that I mentioned before. But it's always a good bonus to see our staff members moving vertically to becoming director positions, because it shows that at least we do some good things here. And Mr. Peck's going to do a good job. You're going to notice on the agenda a whole lot of programs for the summer camp and the Certified Angels. And I think it's awesome that the kids are looking to bring these programs are looking to bring lots of cool activities to the kids. Like these are the kind of things that kids are going to think are exciting and want to do for their summertime. When I first got to HPS, and this is not because the best thing I did was probably just not do anything and get out of the way, but the aftercare program was slowly losing money each year. Mr. Torito was given the freedom to make the decisions he had to make to fix the financing, and this was even before COVID, but then all of a sudden the aftercare started to be not only fiscally sustainable, but it started to grow. And what he did was keep investing back, and he built the summer camp from something that was really nothing all that special to now there's a million different activities and events going on. The kids are always doing something. So I'm really proud of Jeff Torito for all the work he's done stabilizing and then advancing that program. And the Angels has pretty much been a hit since day one. Like the kids like it, the parents like it. It's been viewed as a great service that's offered. So, and that's something that came to me from the board member. It wasn't like just staying out of the way is probably the best thing I could do on those two fronts. I get a lot of emails about this, so I'll say it now publicly. We got the NJSLS testing Monday, so I have to get my principal's birthday story time celebrations in before that. So we're gonna do joint March and April together on Fridays. There's gonna be a lot of birthday parties on Friday. I'm sure I probably forgot something, but those are my notes for tonight.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Any questions, anybody?
Guys,
Mhm.
so on the new hire, for the custodian position, is there any value in putting it back out a second time to see if
So-
we get additional applicants?
We got so few, and this was posted, the first person that applied, that submitted their application was on February 24th, right? This thing was open for a long time, and people knew about it that were in that field, and like everything I wrote to you in that email was accurate, like as far as the good candidates and then and some of the candidates that were a little wacky.
How long was it out there for?
So if the first person applied on the 24th, I'm approximating, but probably mid to February 15th to February 20th. And then it stayed open for whatever the shelf life is, the standard default.
Like 10 days.
I think it was more than 10 days it was open.
It was open in March, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember.
I think it was even, so whenever we approved it to close, that's when it closed. But I'm pretty sure March, it might have been April, it was still open.
And then I want to add a second question. It kind of is escaping me now. In the contract agreement or the employment agreement, is there a probationary period in there at all, or is it once he's in, he's in?
So, well, once he's in, but he's a non-tenured employee. So, if things aren't working out, which, and I do expect them to work, like you know,
based on the
the dark
track
cloud,
and the
you know,
different
the thing.
references you guys got, I agree.
So I'm sure it's gonna work out. But if we ever were disappointed with the performance of either him as an individual or his ability to lead and keep the place clean, if the projects go sour, then we repost again, and you know, that's where we're at.
Does he have like a 30-day clause or a 60-day clause in his contract?
Probably 60 days, right? Like most people.
Most certified staff will have it'll be 60-day clause
60.
where we had an employee a couple of years back where I saw the termination clause where things weren't working out, and I decided that it wasn't even worth waiting to the end of the year, and I just went, you know, straight to, we're not going to have you here anymore. We just had to pay her for, I think it was either 60 days or 90 days or something along those lines. You know, again, these are all worst case scenario situations, but that's something we've done, or I've done in the past.
Can I, follow-up question?
Mhm.
So, again, you sent out the agenda, I look up the individual, first thing I find is this lawsuit.
Mhm.
If it doesn't work out, we hire this gentleman. The immediate common sense thing that anyone would think is that if you were to turn around and say it didn't work out, the very next step would be another lawsuit.
Well, that's if I get sued though, like it's.
If, no, he's already sued
Mhm.
for sake, because he didn't get the same position, have a copy of the lawsuit,
Mhm.
public record. What would make you think that if you were to give discipline to this employee, if you were to terminate the employee, that any action that you take would not result in the same action that he has proven to have already done? Because the allegations listed in here are, again, just like anything else, only allegations until they're determined by either jury or a judge that says that these are actual what happened. That's his opinion of what happened, which we all have different perspectives on everything in life. I kind of feel the same way, like, if now saying that it may have been only open for 10 days, I don't see the rush to go forward in.
Well, let's if we can fact, but the length was, because I'm sure it was open for, I believe it was open for 10 days.
Well, that's the minimum requirement, is 10 days.
And
However,
It could be
it's something
longer.
where you have me, another superintendent at Manchester and BA, out of all the candidates we saw and we knew about the lawsuit, wasn't like we had. Given the severity of what we want to get done, plus, you know, some of the other custodial improvements we'd like to see, this was a candidate that was, and I don't want to say this by disparaging any other candidate, this was the one that was clearly the one that we thought was going to get done what we needed to get done. It's, you know, I don't anticipate that, if something doesn't work out, I'm gonna get sued. I guess anything's possible. But like, you can't be a superintendent in public school without dealing with lawsuits at some point, there's just so much going on. It's not something that it's a pain in the neck, all the paperwork that you have to do with deposition, things like that. So like, it's not something an outcome that I would want, yet still, based on all the candidates, I'm still recommending this for PETA, despite the fact that there was, this lawsuit, despite the fact that, this could be a major, not an inconvenience, but a lot of extra work for me. It's still a recommendation that this is to protect your investment and to protect your building and grounds, to keep your building clean, and in some cases to improve where we're at custodially. This candidate can do it to an extent that the other candidates I don't believe can.
Yes, is this something that we can go into an executive session to discuss further before we take a vote on? I think at this point that there are concerns that we probably should do that.
Yeah, I mean, I had asked Mr. Walker the same, if the questions became too specific, perhaps we should go into executive session. So if that's okay with you, Mr. Walker?
It's your board. So you guys want to do that. I think
Yes.
I think it's wise to do that.
Okay. Okay, so then I guess it's in personnel, correct? So when we get to that, we'll table it. All right, when we get to that agenda item in personnel, we'll table, and then we'll discuss it further in executive session. Would this affect, well, it doesn't affect this person's start date because it's not approved yet, so.
He's an employee of the public school, not respectable until the board approves, right? So, it's something where if the board all wants to go to executive session, then that's what we do, and then we have a more detailed conversation.
But this is just a preliminary contract, right? That was offered to him.
For 2023, July 1st till June 30th.
So right now, until we approve it, nothing's final.
And then the answers are gonna approve it.
And the customers and the employee is well aware, right?
He's aware, plus like it's public.
No, I mean, well aware that this needs to be approved.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So
yeah,
then
yeah.
we're good. Let's tell it and
Eight, so it's only like a week away.
But we're in executive session today. Yeah.
It could be back on the, it depending how the.
What I do, we can.
Oh. Okay. So then in that case, nothing would be taken.
They're mainly.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Waka. I'm gonna pass it now to, Business Administrator, Ms. Augustin.
And my report today was the budget, presentation, and the other item I have on my list is to discuss if any board member has not completed their disclosure form, it is due this Friday. Yeah.
Oh, it's the last one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So please get it in. This is very important for, also with CUSAC, that this is done on a timely manner. So if you need some assistance, call us in the board office. We can help move you. Okay? All right. And I don't have the specific dates, but I do know that the fall conference, I think they sent an email out, and just kind of put that in your head if anyone's interested in going, so that we can start the planning process early. All right? Just think about the dates, look at them. I forget what.
It's the 23rd.
Yeah, I was gonna say the 24th, but it's October. So please let me know as early as you can so we can plan accordingly and we can kind of make those decisions on what we would do.
I went, I only for the one day, but I thought it was really good.
Very
We enjoyed it. Yes.
good. Okay? Yeah. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, so moving, personnel and management, Mr. Martinez? Okay,
Did we,
That's the.
we're just,
final budget, did you, isn't that right after the committee report? I'm sorry.
fine. Oh, so did we not approve the final budget?
We just did the presentation, we didn't vote on it.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. We're so sorry. No, no. We gotta.
We're not voting yet. We're gonna go through the list. So, uh, Curriculum and technology, Mr. Abasi. Policy and public relations, Mr. Martinez. Security and safety, Mr. Zlatanovic.
Principal Walker also already covered some of the security related stuff to the budget, so, and there's no news from Trenton that I'm
Community engagement and outreach, Mr. Motzko.
Agenda items only.
Okay, and then Mr. Motzko, finance and fiscal plan.
We met, we signed bills, we went over the budget in detail. And we're all good with that. That's it.
Great. And state and county, you said you have,
the county school boards association has an event coming up in May. Visit the website. I mentioned it before. So
That's
you know
the,
what it's in that.
It's a teacher of year event.
Yeah, and also in that same week, there's the legislative committee and delegates meetings. So maybe usually on Saturdays. Yeah, you could visit. You could go.
I saw that.
And that's all.
and then just, for that May 8th meeting, which is the Passaic County meeting, they did change the location for the in-person meeting. It was going to be at Amore and Wayne, and now it's gonna be somewhere in Fox.
Send it? I thought they didn't send it yet.
It's on the site.
Is that a site?
Yeah,
If you go
Okay.
yeah, I forget the location. Yeah, it's just a different venue, so.
Emailed it.
Okay. Okay, so let's move to personnel and management and, Mr. Martinez.
No,
Oh, now. You jinxed me. So to approve the final budget. Okay, so moved by Ms. Motzko, seconded by Mr. Zinn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abasi?
Yes.
Mr. Coletta? Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Matzo? Mr. Zen?
Yes.
Mrs. Antonivic? And Mrs. Issa?
Yes. Okay, great. The budget is approved. Okay, now to personnel and management, Mr. Martinez.
I'd like to move 8.1 through 8.13.
Second.
Okay, and
I'm sorry. Abstain from 8.10 so that we can table that and move everything else.
okay, so we're gonna move we're gonna move 8.1 through 8.9 and then 8.11
Through
through 8.13.
Someone has to make a motion to table.
Motion. Second.
So let's do the regular item. and
So
then-
we're moving 8.1
Mhm.
through 8.9, then 8.11 through 8.13. Motion?
Second.
Okay.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Martinez, seconded by Mr. Coletta. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abasi?
Yes.
Mr. Coletta?
Yeah.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Matzo?
Yes.
Mr. Zen?
Yes.
Mrs. Antonivic?
Yes.
And Mrs. Issa?
Yes. So now can I have a motion to table 8.10?
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Mr. Motzko, seconded by Mr. Martinez. Roll call, please.
Abasi?
Yes. Under the, understanding that we're moving it to executive session for discussion.
Mr. Coletta?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Matzo?
Yes.
Mr. Zen?
Yes.
Mrs. Antonivic?
Yes.
And Mrs. Issa?
Yes. Okay, now curriculum and technology, Mr. Abasi.
So, the motion to move from 9.1 to 9.7, and I just want to comment real quick on 9.6 for the school calendar. I'd just like to say thank you for acknowledging Eid on April 10th, potentially. But just, I gave him a quick
This is-
education on,
I gotta learn this.
so there's two major holidays in the Muslim faith. Eid al-Fitr is the one that commences the end of, or commemorates the end of Ramadan. And then there's a second one called Eid al-Adha that commemorates the end of the annual pilgrimage. And that happens on the 10th day of 2 months after Ramadan. So it's about 69, 70 days apart. So now since we're moving up another 10 days, it's actually probably gonna fall within the school year on June 17th.
But it has nothing to do with the moon.
So you'll know 10 days prior. Like when the month starts, count 10 days.
So like, we don't always know where the moon, like, I'm gonna be asking out of
It's
ignorance, but don't we always
there-
know where the moon is gonna
Depends
be?
on, right, it depends on the sighting at the time. It's I don't know the exact science behind it, alright, just, okay, maybe you catch it when it's just a sliver or the other way around and you're like, oh, we gotta wait another 3 hours. But there's a potential, like, I don't know if you looked at the numbers from this past Friday, how many people called out or not?
250.
250. So there's a potential on June 17th of next year, which is a Monday, that you might have a similar occurrence.
Now, would that cause our days in school or out of school to, would that be an
We
issue?
have to make, it's something where I'd have to assess, I wanna, if it's gonna be a 10-day advance notice, we're probably not gonna be able to change anything. If we get more advance notice, then there's time to kind of have so I can't give a parent less than 10 days or less notice that, hey,
And it's weird,
we're having a snow day, right?
that week is already a weird week.
Because of
Juneteenth is that
Juneteenth.
Friday.
Right.
The Wednesday and Thursday, I think I saw were half days, like as you're winding down to the end of the year, it's like, why even have school the whole week?
Mhm.
If you do have off the whole week, let all the students know it's because of me. Just
Parents.
apologize, I should have brought this up in the committee reports, but, motion to move 9.1 through 9.7.
So moved.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Abbasi, seconded by Mr. Mosco. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbasi?
Yes.
Mr. Coletta?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Moxell?
Yes.
Mr. Zen?
Yes.
Mrs. Zentanovic?
Yes.
And Mrs. Zissou.
Yes. Okay, now, policy. I lost my, sorry, I lost my committee members. Is that Mr. Martinez? Okay, Mr. Martinez.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Martinez, seconded by Mr. Motzko. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbasi?
Yes.
Mr. Coletta?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Moxell?
Yes.
Mr. Zen?
Yeah.
Mrs. Zentanovic?
Yes.
And Mrs. Zissou.
Yes. Security and safety, Mr. Zlatonovic.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Zlatonovic, seconded by Mr. Motzko. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbasi?
Yes.
Mr. Coletta?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Moxell?
Yes.
Mr. Zen?
Yeah.
Mrs. Zentanovic? And Mrs.
Yes. You know what? I think I need these.
Whenever we have.
I had a question now and I forgot to ask it.
Sure.
Security,
Community
did we-
engagement.
so we just did, I'm sorry, can I backtrack to ask a question about security and safety?
Yes.
Okay, so on 4.6 for the memorandum of agreement with the Hillsdale Police Department, should we add the interim vice principal to that list of contacts? Because right now, Mr. Quelly is on it. Should we add Ms. McNeil to that list of contacts, or does it
So this is what we give them for it's saying. So this has been revised already, but,
I mean, it said that there were no changes since last year, but I was just wondering if that should be updated.
so what we could do, or wishes to do,
Which item?
It's 4.6 in security and safety.
so we wouldn't obviously get rid of that particular employee, but we just add another column. If do we need to approve this one tonight? Is there any time restraints on this? if there is, we can improve it, because our SRO knows, that Ms. McNeil is here now and the other person's not. And then the next board meeting, we can post an updated one.
Yeah.
Or-
With her name added to.
Yeah, but I think this is something that, when QSEC comes, they're gonna check it, so I'd like to get this on there. And I think common sense would say that we, as the police know that there is a new person in this position.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so now we are at, we were at community engagement, and that's, Mr. Motzko.
So I'd like to move item 12.1, 12.2.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Motzko, seconded by Mr. Martinez. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abasi,
Yes.
Mr. Coletta,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Zinn,
Yes.
Mrs. Antonivic,
Yes.
and Mrs. Zissou.
Yes. Okay, finance and physical plan, Mr. Motzko.
I'd like to move item 13.1. Through 13.16.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Motzko, seconded by Mr. Martinez. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abasi,
Yes.
Mr. Coletta,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Moxel,
Yes.
Mr. Zinn,
Yes.
Mrs. Antonivic,
1310 is just the income statement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
1310.
Yes.
You can stay on.
okay, Mrs. Zissou.
Yes. Okay. New and old business. Does anybody have any new or old business? Mr.
Yeah,
Abasi?
so two things. One, just, I know we haven't met since this happened, but just wanted to offer my condolences to the family, friends, and the entire Manchester community on the untimely passing of Mr. Fadihana. My thoughts and prayers are with his family, and him. And just wanted to acknowledge that whenever we lose someone in our community, it should be acknowledged. Second, I just want to wrap this up. I know I've come back to this a couple times on the health curriculum. So at the time on February 22nd, we approved the health curriculum and we put out that we were going to ask for any feedback and comments. On the 13th, after speaking with Mr. Waka, we hadn't received any feedback. We got a comment from Mrs. Cerna that she in fact did send an email. When Mr. Waka went back and looked, it was under the heading of a different subject, which is why it was kind of lost in the shuffle. So the comment essentially was looking at or concern for what the illustrations or visual aids essentially that were going to be used in the health curriculum. So in the last board meeting, I asked Mr. Waka for the textbooks that are used, picked them up from him a couple days later. I went through them. So there's no new texts, new illustrations. There's nothing new that's being added. These are textbooks from 2007 and 2009. It's the same type of stuff I saw when I was doing health in 1995. They are from Glencoe McGraw-Hill, published by Bronson Cleary Hubbard, Teen Health 1, 2, 3. These are just standard textbooks. I went through them page by page. It sucked, but there was nothing in there that was explicit. There's none of that new progressive stuff that's being taught in some of the other schools. So I think from that standpoint, I returned the textbooks to Mr. Waka, and I think in my opinion, there's nothing new, nothing obscene in the health curriculum at all. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. I was not aware about the passing of the community member from Manchester, so I. Okay, anybody else have anything new or old? I have one item, it's the retreat, so we're still trying to nail down a date for the retreat. I sent out additional dates in July because we didn't have everybody on, one or the May 6th or the June 3rd date. So I sent out some additional dates. I mean, we're looking at basically like 10 AM to 1 PM. If, it's gonna be tough to get everybody available on one day, so if we can't do that, I think at this point, what we need to do is just go with the date that has the most people available. So once I hear back from Lois, once I get everybody's availability back, we'll make that decision, and then we can start moving forward with the planning of the retreat, so just stay tuned for that.
And I have one that's important. I forgot to acknowledge Ms. Rooney, one of our secretaries. I'm so sorry. Bill, thank you so much for saving me. Ms. Rooney, you get an extra nice gift. I'm so sorry.
So at this time, I'd like to open the floor to citizens, for comment.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Motzko, seconded by Mr. Abassi. Roll call, please. I'm sorry, Mr. Martinez, sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Coletta,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez, Mr. Matzo,
Yes.
Mr. Zen, Mr. Thomas.
Yes, and I just, I want to, make my statement that, board members, please, state your name. We'll go with the folks who are here first, and then if there's anybody online, we'll move to them. State your name, state your address. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board. We will then, once we hear everybody, all the comments, we will close the floor. And then if any board members would like to address any of the comments that were made, if it's appropriate, you may do so. Okay, the floor is open. So we're going to start with people present. So Ms. Serna, would you like to address the board?
Thank you, Mr. Lassie. I appreciate you getting back to me. Roxanne, Sarah, 430 Southside Ave, building 30, it's in by the way. As per your lawyer, you were told, to hold Walker accountable. What has changed? What have you done? You say to show up to meetings. I have. What is actually the purpose of coming? If you and Walker have done absolutely nothing, you accommodated the Muslim community for Ramadan in the middle of the year, had no problem doing that. However, in September, when the Catholic, Christian, Muslim community asked for accommodations due to the music teacher you hired, that was an automatic no, and some having been pulling children out since the very beginning and will continue to do so. Others are forced to deal with the situation the school put in our young children's faces. And just a side note, the rebuttal is the children like him. I don't know about you, but my 6 and 7-year-olds do not dictate to me what is what. Uniforms, I continue to say over and over again. There's a student that was came into school yesterday with a crop top that was allowed to walk to school with her half her belly out the entire day. It's a kid that came in with a hat on backwards. I think he just started this week. And was allowed to do so all day long. At this point, I'm trying to figure out, are you trying to arouse an adult teacher? We've already had that issue years before. So why aren't you handling the uniform situation? We have policies in place for a reason. The gun safety, which I've talked about numerous times. Right here on Henry Street, half a block away from the school. 5 handguns, 1 assault rifle, numerous magazines, various ammunition, 2 bulletproof vests, over 200 grams of cocaine, over a kilo of fentanyl, 6 pounds of marijuana, multiple bricks of heroin were found and confiscated by Morristown Police Department. Things must work better here as far as security. I reached out to Walker about Rainbow Week. He says it's been in place before he even got here. Okay. Is he living in 2023? The rainbow is now a part of the LGBTQ community, meaning it's a sexuality. It's not your fault or my fault. It is what it is. It is not hard to change the title to make parents feel at ease. Dramatic changes to the drop-off mid-year, actually more towards ending of the year. No word about that from Mr. Transparency. Communication about a teacher's attendance and dismissal, Walker can't seem to answer. And if I don't get any answers, then what's the point of dealing with Walker, period? It doesn't work out well. I get a very vague answer when I get a communication, and if I have to, I will CC Keisha Drakeford, which is their executive county superintendent. I'm just trying to be as honest as possible, Walker has the emails. But these are my concerns. If I say it, when you guys tell me to come, I come, and then there's nothing going on. So what's the purpose?
Thank you. Mr. Miller, anybody else? Okay, so can I have a motion to close the floor?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Martinez, seconded by Mr. Motzko. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbasi?
Yes.
Mr. Coletta?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Moxell?
Yes.
Mr. Zen?
Yes.
Mrs. Antoniuk?
Yes.
And Mrs. Isser.
Yes. I would like to address some of Ms. Sona's comments, just in general. You know, the venues for parents are to speak to, you know, we've said this before, there's a hierarchy depending on the nature of a concern. You start with the teacher, then you go to the vice principal, then you go to the, you know, superintendent or CSA. Then you can come to the board. You can go beyond that if you choose. Those are your, that's your prerogative. That's your right to do that. You know, things aren't always addressed in the way that a parent would like them to be addressed. You might get an answer, but it's not the answer that you like. So, you know, that it's your right and your prerogative to take it further. But, you know, the board is going to follow the policies that are, you know, that are before us. And just as an example, if a staff member is doing his or her job, if they are professional, if they're having success with their students and in the classroom, there's no reason for anything to, you know, be done about. There's nothing to be done about it. If parents don't like that, that's a different story, you know. So, and it's their choice if they want to remove their students. That's their prerogative. You can do that. But there's nothing on the board side to be done. So that, I mean, that's just, you know, an example. But certainly you have every right to take this, you know, if you wish to take it to the, you know, the county superintendent, or that's your prerogative. And we do appreciate you coming and sitting through the meeting and, you know, giving us your concerns, and we do hear you. But we're, you know, we're not always going to give you the answer that you may be looking for. So, Mr. Coletta?
I don't know whether it's a question or a comment, but I do also not understand, as a board member and as a parent, that there does seem to be, for certain things, accommodation. However, even as a parent before joining the board, when I asked for a reasoning as to why, for religious belief, which is protected under the US and New Jersey state constitution, that the issue that she's bringing up wouldn't be addressed, I was never actually given in writing a policy, a law, or anything from anybody. We pay a board attorney, who I've seen once. I've been at numerous meetings. That's the empty chair with a sign. That's what we get. I don't understand why he can't be here to answer legally why, if parents are upset, there is no accommodation being made, and what accommodations can or cannot be. And if they can't, where in the law it's dictated that they can't. I don't understand what we pay him for if he's not at the meeting.
So he's not my attorney, he's your attorney. So
I understand.
As far as, you know, inviting him to meetings, we can do that. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Part of finance, he only gets paid when he's here.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
See, I appreciate that.
Yeah, he only gets paid when he's here.
And whatever the retainer is to keep them as the.
When the contract goes out, it just goes out, and then they already know, because I believe me, I have him sitting here next to me every time. But he only gets paid, yeah.
I think you can email, or if you don't, I'll get it, but he doesn't work for me, he works for you, so you're allowed to email any the board attorney whatever you want.
So, I mean, I have a comment. Let's say I go to school. I go get my bachelor's, I go get my master's, I go get a PhD. And I have all the certificates and requirements to do my job. And I'm just gonna say it, because I want to wear a dress tomorrow. does that not mean that I'm not qualified to do this job?
That's not the issue.
No, no, hold on, hold on.
think it's-
I don't, just, but I wanna express I just wanna express what comes to mind when we have to take a decision on something that maybe we, due to our religion, what we believe in does not equal. But the fact that a person can actually go to school, can get an education, can get the certifications and do a good job in their job, and whatever they decide to do at home is their personal prerogative, right? I'm not inside that person's head, but I know that that person is certified to take care of these kids. I might not like that he's whatever, but I'm still certain that he's capable of doing his job, and that's what he was hired for.
So someone's religious, personal or religious beliefs doesn't necessarily weigh on whether legally that person can be here, work here. It doesn't. So that may be completely against your religion or your personal beliefs or both, but if it doesn't weigh in on legally whether that person can teach here. And the school is not obliged and the board is not obliged to make accommodations, and furthermore, to make accommodations could implicate us, so we would be implicating ourselves as a board to do that because it verges on discrimination. So, and I mean, we've had this conversation before, in
Yeah,
our board meetings.
I'm certain Merlino covered this. That's the thing. This is not, I mean, if parents want to remove their kids from the class, are they still allowed to do that?
They vote
Yeah.
on it.
Okay. And-
how is that
And,
accommodating?
and, are the kids' grades affected by that?
They don't receive a grade. It's an incomplete, I believe, right? Your daughter.
Oh, I had. Be careful what I say. Using myself as an example, my child does not attend this class. There's no reason that there should be a comment when the person has never supervised my child. And this was brought up, and I understand the frustration as a board member and as a parent, where there was a comment left by someone who never supervised my child on my child's basic permanent record that follows her throughout the school and throughout her education. My question to the president is, I agree that I know from my job, it's very difficult to accommodate certain things. However, I know parents have asked, multiple parents have asked, people have emailed. Maybe if the attorney could provide something in writing as to why nothing could be done, that could quell the reasons as to why, if people feel that the board's not doing what they should be doing in their opinion, or to provide something to the community as to why the legal opinion is that there is no accommodation that can be made. Perhaps, because then instead of having the same argument over and over from parents, board members, community members, at least then there's something in writing that's legal, that, it's what we pay them for. So I perhaps maybe that's something we could look into doing. I don't know if you'd be, willing to do that. I mean, he apparently, there was obviously discussed in September when there was the big meeting, but, nothing was ever put out as to why, why there can't be.
Okay, so when Mr. Grisman was president, he made numerous statements and he read the whole Discrimination Act and, but, I think at this point, perhaps we can ask our attorney to just give us some legal, give us a statement
Mhm.
to say why we're not going to accommodate a parent who wants to remove their child from a class if there's no legal reason there for that,
A suggestion, my suggestion, if you get the exact question or questions that you want asked, your board president can contact the board attorney anytime, she wants.
My suggestion,
And it's is to do that, and then if you want to share with the board, it's probably why.
my suggestion too is if you're gonna have questions specific to this employee, you're probably gonna run into race notice issues.
Yeah,
So that's,
Yeah, even, so, Board, I don't want to go any further. I agree. But I think any questions you have, you take a look at and we go from there.
Yeah, and, you know, I can ask the attorney to phrase it in general, because it doesn't apply just to one employee at HPS. It applies to all the employees at HPS. So it could be, you know, a statement that's, you know, like a blanket statement, you know. So I will do that. I will reach out to the attorney and to get, in terms of, and what we're talking about here is accommodation. That's what we're talking about.
Board member Kenny. If you're not.
As long as they
As
have.
long as they've read it, and we
Okay, the other, or. Okay, so we are gonna go into executive session now. Action may be taken. I would say, we always like lowball it, so I would say like 15 minutes at least, 15, 20 minutes, maybe shorter. So can I have a motion to go? Yeah. Okay, so can I have a motion to go into executive session? Mr. Malko, seconded by Mr. Zinn, roll call please. Well, let's just do our roll call first.
Mr. Abasi,
Yes.
Mr. Coletta,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Moxell,
Yes.
Mr. Zen, Mrs. Antonic,
Yes.
Mrs. Zissou.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I have a motion to move 8:10?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Motzko, seconded by Mr. Martinez, roll call please.
Mr. Abasi,
Yes.
Mr. Coletta,
No.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Moxell,
Yes.
Mr. Zen,
Yes.
Mrs. Antonic,
Yes.
and Mrs. Zissou.
Yes,
Okay.
okay. Motion to adjourn,
So move.
Second.
moved by Mr. Motzko, seconded by Mr. Zinn, roll call please.
Mr. Abasi,
Yes.
Mr. Coletta,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Moxell,
Yes.
Mr. Zen,
Yes.
Mrs. Antonic,
Yeah.
and Mrs. Zissou.
Yes, thank you everyone, and thank you board members for all your input, and we'll see you in a week and a half.